Okay, welcome everybody back to the Lion Ball channel. We are back here with Luke Terry. He's an ultimate pool commentator and he is a pool player who just recently took part in our Lion Ball League 2 qualifiers. So we're going to be just unpacking the series a little bit. We're going to review 2025 Lion Ball pool content, look at what's coming up in 2026, and just kind of pick Luke's brain for some Lion Ball tips and tricks and advice. Now he's played in a tournament. We've done some series with him. You've seen him on the channel loads of times because of the YouTube shorts, and you've been really enjoying those. So thank you very much for watching. And Luke, welcome back to the channel.
Hi Max. It's been an interesting year of the Live Ball League, isn't it? So
Yes. Well, thank you for taking part. We had an interesting time, and we'll be getting straight into spoilers. So if you haven't watched the Lion Ball League 2 qualifiers, I'd say pause the video right here and then come back. So to set the scene and the context, there are two players who were going to be promoted to the Lion Ball League out of six who took part. Luke and I both played. I ended up finishing in third place, so I didn't get in. And Luke, you also unfortunately didn't qualify. You ended up one place behind me in fourth. So what is your reaction to the aftermath of it?
um yeah, it wasn't great, was it? It wasn't great. No, I mean I think with me, with my nature in terms of how I play pool as well, I just went way too attacking from the off. And
Yeah.
my issue was not getting beat by the player, it was me hitting the eight ball consistently. And it got a bit frustrating, but at the same time, I had a really good laugh of it. And when I did eventually settle down and start playing the correct shots, like I ended up getting some results, but it was a little too late, too late by then. So it
Yeah.
is what it is.
No, I think you had quite a good run against obviously Darren and Stewart. Congratulations to them for qualifying. They played really well, but you did have good games against them because they sort of arrived a little bit later in the day. And I think once you were in the flow, it was good. But because of the format of that day, it was only a few games. It did kind of mean that if you got one or two losses under your belt, it was a bit of an uphill battle. So what do you think kind of led to you having that really sort of attacking mindset when you were playing in the first few games?
I think my thinking was, I think when I played a couple of the earlier games, it was an interesting mix of players because you had six there where I'd probably say half were very experienced and half weren't,
Yeah.
because you've got, obviously, you had Eric and Brandon who obviously, haven't got so much of a pool background. They have just played line ball. So in terms of their read on the game, you could say in theory it's not as good as somebody else's. Whether that pans out or not, they've played more line ball. So, you do kind of mentally take that risk when you're doing that. So I think when I played Brandon and Eric, I think I thought I had a little bit more leniency and kind of forgot about that eight ball and tried to play a couple of shots to really just promote my balls and try and knock theirs kind of down past the line where they were inaccessible. Um, that caught me out, and then I lost against one of them. I can't remember which one I lost to. And then obviously when you've got the players from the Dover Pool League that come in, they are very experienced. I could kind of tell straight away from the moment they walk through the door, they're very granite pool players as it is. So, that game suits them because it is very much like a big tactical exchange where you're just constantly battling to try and keep it on the table. And I remember in one of those frames, all the balls were used. It wasn't a case of one of us had lost it by hitting the eight. It was a case of we've all tried to go back and forth. And eventually I ended up kind of checkmated by one ball by going seconds. But it's fine lines. It really is with line ball. Two shots go the other way, I'm probably thrown out of the group. But it was interesting. But it's also a good experience for everybody else that's involved because I can guarantee you that all six players will come back next time. And when there is another qualifier, they'll probably get a lot closer to going through.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really interesting, and I agree with what you said about the adjustment and the fact that it suits their game. The players from the Dover League adapted to line ball in a really fascinating way because I've now had a plethora of different sort of pool players come in and try line ball from yourself with the ultimate pool background. Kieran Poole, who is the founder of Rubbish Snooker, he was the former host of the World Snooker Tour podcast, and he's played in a lot of our tournaments now. and then obviously the Dover Pool League crew. And they've all kind of adapted in different ways. And I feel like slow starts for some of them, but once they've kind of gotten the game under their belt, they've really kind of really gone at players. And as you said, with them being granite pool players, they're very confident and almost stoic in a way. They didn't really let the emotion show. And yeah, they really pushed through. So Darren and Stuart will be playing in the league next year. And what would you say are some of the key things that you were going to take away into maybe your next line ball tournament you play in that you are going to use from the experience you've had in this one?
I mean, I would just like to know that Darren and Stuart will do very well in that league next year because they are, in terms of if you would look for the characteristics of a line ball player, you want them to be quite compact. You want them to have a good safety game. You want them to be able to read where they can take a risk and where to kind of knock balls out. And that's their game to a T. That's it, exactly what they kind of tick that box. And in terms of what is going to help me, I mean, for me, I'm a lot more of a streaky player. I think that accounts in my pool game a lot, but it's something that's almost emphasised when you play line ball because it is so quick and straight to the point. So with that in mind, I probably do need to become that bit more compact. And, obviously it's a big adjustment because it's not my natural game. But at the same time, if you're going to end up doing well in these tournaments, it is a risk you've got to take. You don't want to go too far. You don't want to just start parking the bus because people will just be able to knock your balls out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just when to go and when not to go.
Yeah, it's a really fine balance of attack and defense. So, yeah, no, that really did show through in your game because I think even when you were sort of playing your attack shots, you were trying to use all of the space available on the table. So I think going more compact is the way to go because, as you said, Darren and Stuart had a lot of games where there were balls clumped in corners and there wasn't really a whole lot of space for people to take advantage of their room. And if we actually throw it all the way back to the Line Ball League 1, where a Dover Pool League player won it, Sam Lazarus, his last few games, he was playing so compact that he was able to grind out wins because there was no lanes that people could use
Yeah.
to attack his ball. So what do you think is going to help you make that adjustment? Is it pace control? Is it just a mentality shift or is it something else?
Oh, it's a big mentality shift. It's because I know from my years in the sport, I've won, from the pool side, I've won tactical games, I've won attacking games, all of the departments are functional and they are there. It's just that when do you use them? When do you want to use them? And I think that maybe there was a part of me that was maybe a little bit, what would the word be? Kind of assuming that it was going to go well.
Yeah.
Which obviously is a dangerous avenue to start on anyway. Because I just knew I could play the shots and get the balls out, which, as I say, when you've got people like Darren and Sam there that will kind of shut the door on you and go, look, like, we're going to be parking these in the top corner of pocket. You're going to have to do well to get these out. Even going first at that point becomes an advantage because you have really parked the bus. There's no avenue out unless you're really going to force the game and risk hitting the 8 ball. So, fair play to them. They definitely get the game right. And, maybe it's a bit like, when Judd Trump plays pool and he pulls out or plays snooker and he's playing all like the naughty snooker.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where my brain's gone a little bit. Sam and Darren are coming across as like the Selbies of the game and really trying to drag it out and play it slow.
Yeah.
It's a will to win. So it's interesting. I think probably 6 out of 10, they would probably win playing the defensive game. 4 out of 10, I'd play playing the attacking game. Would I shift that playing Sam and Darren? I don't know. It just depends on how the balls lay out.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So Stuart, Sam, and Darren will be representing the Line Ball League next year and they'll be wearing their Dover colours, I'm sure, and representing Dover. Dover is starting to take over the Line Ball channel a little bit, so and for good reason, as you say, with the style and how they've played. So for yourself, Luke, I like to ask you this question every single time we have a touch point of you playing line ball about what you think separates line ball from other cue sports. Because I know I asked you before you'd even played line ball. We did an interview right back in the day before you'd even had a go. I asked you whilst we were playing on the table when I came to see you in East Grinstead, but now I want to ask you again, now that you've played under the pressure of having the cameras on, a tournament format, what do you think now, given all your experience with line ball, separates it from other cue sports?
The the main difference is that it is all on your focus. It is 100% all on your focus. If you let one ball slip, you kind of put in a quick one, you don't put the ball through properly, that ball's not going to go where you want it to go. And with that, it's amazing in line ball how much it makes a difference getting a ball right over the corner pocket and leaving it a couple of inches short.
Yeah,
Because with that, the difference is that somebody can just go off the back cushion, knock it out, and it's like the ball was never there. And with that, you need to have good weighting. I remember having that interview with you at the start, and I said weighting is the most important thing, and I still think it is. But it is a mix of that and being able to focus. Because if you're weighting the balls right, then you can do it that way. It feels like line ball is a really good introduction to anybody that's going into further cue sports and they want to, progress from playing English pool or playing American pool even, because in theory, they're all translatable. You could play it on any table. On an American table, I can imagine it'd be a bit tougher because you haven't really got the jaws because
yeah,
they are just buckets. And for any American player watching, you deserve to know it's buckets. But
yeah.
at the same time, it is very doable. And yeah, I'd be very interested to see now the players that started with line ball with you, Max, probably with a week or two's practice on how to cue when they're playing pool to see actually how much they would translate. Because I think they would probably be brilliant players within 4 or 5 months, which is,
Yeah, no, I think that is amazing that you still find line ball to be a really nice and accessible game. I think we haven't had the ability to really test how it translates onto normal pool. The only time we've ever really sort of done it is when we did the series with the Dover crew, right when we first met them, and we did a mixture of line ball games and then regular pool games, but it was back to back. So obviously they were much better at regular pool and just beat us off the park. But as you said, with maybe the line ball practice and then a series of concentrated full 8 ball practice, how would that translate? So no, that's something we should keep in mind as we go into the sort of the future of line ball.
what you need, Max, is you need like somebody to come in and just be like a coach for a week. Like
Yeah.
almost like military routine. Like this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to practice. This is how you're going to do this. We know you can do that already, and just go
Yeah.
for it. And I can guarantee you that within a week, I think a lot of players that have played just line ball would be very good pool players.
That's good. No, well, we'll have to put that to the test then. Once the line ball budget increases, we'll have to get someone like a proper
We'll
coach
make
in.
it a documentary. I dragged Luke down to Canterbury
Yeah.
for a week to drill us on how to think of pool players, and
That
this
would
was the
actually be
result.
that'd be a good series, wouldn't it? Yeah, and yeah, make it properly like a military camp, but for pool playing. And who knows, by the end, if we had some line ball players going on to the Ultimate Pool Tour, that would be hilarious. Uh,
I mean, that would be such a good ambassadorship for the sport, wouldn't it?
yeah,
It would be amazing to see it one day. And I think it's very doable, especially with Ultimate now where they've opened up the extra tiers and things like that. Why not? Why not give it a go?
yeah, and so there's 2 points I want to go into because in terms of how we're expanding line ball for next year, we are actually trying to make the format a little bit more about improving your general game. As you said, when you were talking about the fact that you could sometimes just lose by defeating yourself, really, and not actually having to play in order to win. The next tournament we've got coming up is called Line Ball Five Strikes, and we've already recorded it, and it is easily the highest standard of line ball yet because it is, and this is a little bit of a teaser for it now. It is the first tournament we've done, which is a mix of playing line ball and also line ball challenges. So specific scenarios within the line ball game that you have to complete. There's no opponent. There's no sort of, and there's nothing else but you and the table and the scenario. It could be just play an attack shot. Here's a scenario in front of you. You have to complete this. You have to get a ball out, put a ball in, something like that. If
Oh,
you
okay.
do it, you progress. If you don't, you will lose a life or fall behind. So it's our most unique tournament in that sense, and it eliminates the one issue that standard line ball games have on their own now, from an entertainment perspective, which is, what happened with our first game. You hit the black on the first shot. We didn't even have to play each other. because of how that went. So this tournament eradicates that a little bit. So I think that we're trying to become more educational with line ball. We're trying to teach players to learn from their mistakes with these mini challenges. And hopefully, as you said, the next evolution of that would be to translate them across to some of normal eight ball, wouldn't it?
Oh, 100%. It's more than doable. I think if you learn to get your hands on the table and you can learn how to weight the ball, I think you are, 50% there. And then when you learn how to pot a ball and you can pot a ball quite consistently, then you're 70% of the way there. And then it's the weighting and the cue ball. So actually, in theory, you've kind of done the last 20% first. It's about putting the other 70% back on it.
Yeah, no, that is a really counterintuitive way of learning. So yeah, I guess we do need to have a few crash test dummies. I mean, the prime example would be my lovely girlfriend Monique. She's never played a cue sport before, and Lion Ball is the first thing she's played, and she's kind of learned it really from me. So it would be amazing to see what would happen with her getting proper coaching in the world of pool. I think she would be an amazing example. Also, people like Ardit, who he's played in pretty much every tournament we've done, and he's a real stats man. So it's his career, and so him coming from that background would be another interesting example. But I have a really interesting question for you next. Now that you've obviously played in the tournaments, and we've talked about the more accessible side. On the opposite end of that, the real top end professional pool and snooker players, is there any player that comes to your mind who is a current pro tournament winning champion who you think would be amazing at line ball with almost no
Ooh,
with no like adjustment? They're just given the rules and thrown straight in, and you think they would be immediately adapted.
that's a really good question. Um, I mean, if you're gonna, I mean, you mentioned on Ardit, obviously Ardit being a stats man and a very good line ball player for it. If you're going along that line, then you would be looking along the lines of someone like a Sean Story or a Chris Day, who are as pernickety as I've ever seen a pool player in my life. Like they will go out and practice 4 or 5 hours just to get the break right. They are science people through pool players. So in that regards, those two would be brilliant. If I was looking from a natural cues point of view, it might sound a bit rogue, but I would actually go for Clayton Castaldi, the Maltese world champion from 2023. With Clayton, for a professional player, he might have the worst cue action I've ever seen. It is there's an awkward pause as he gets through the ball. It's almost like he gets stuck. And then when it eventually goes through, it's like a second poke through like that. And that actually probably would work really well for line ball because you don't want to hit the ball hard. You need to have it controlled. And I think with Clayton, I think he does have a good judgment of weighting of a ball. And I think that would really work on, in a weird way, it would work in his favour. Whereas these players like Chris Manningham, I imagine would really struggle. Chris has got this massive cue action that probably stretches the length of the table before he's even at the ball. So, with that, he would probably struggle a little bit more with something like this. But yeah, in terms of my picks, I'd probably go for like a Chris Day and a Clayton Castaldi.
That's really interesting what you said about Clayton Castaldi as well, with that sort of almost like a jabbing cue action. Because I remember when you did a commentary for us, I think you remarked on Ardit's cue action being more of a stab rather than a traditional cue action. And I think
Yeah,
that is quite a beneficial thing to have in line ball because you're riding the line. It's almost a push shot, but it's not.
yes, you are. With Clayton's, it is very much like it's almost like a yip
Yeah.
that you go through, and then it's like it won't go through, and then it does. Whereas with Ardit, it's a little bit more kind of like he hasn't been taught the way to cue. So for
Yeah.
him, that's natural that he's just going to poke through the ball. But it does allow you to get good judgment of weight. So, from when I've watched the channel, I mean, players like Ardit, I think Monique is very underrated in terms of how good she is at line ball. I think Monique would actually do very well on a women's tour if she was, given a year or two to kind of focus on it and practice on it, as would Ardit probably as a pool player. So, those two players definitely translate across both. And it's an interesting correlation to have, Max. It's a good question you asked.
Yeah, no, no, thank you. I thought that wasn't a question I planned, but it just came into my mind as we were kind of spitballing the impact of, newer players versus more professional players playing in line ball. So we are trying to step it up and bring people of all different backgrounds in, because sometimes it doesn't translate as you would expect. So yeah, someone like Chris Melling, I would love to see have a go at line ball, just to see
Yeah.
what would that even look like, if you gave him the rules a couple days in advance, I'm sure he'd probably come in really adjusted. But if you gave it to him immediately and turned the cameras on, who knows what kind of games you would get, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be a little bit like me. I've not got the shortest queue action in the world. And when I started, I mean, it was absolute carnage, wasn't it, when we played each other? Because it was,
Yeah.
1 minute I was getting all the balls out and I was way ahead. And then the next minute, I've hit every 8 ball under the sun. And then you've ended up winning. And it's just the way it goes. With players that have got the longer queue actions, there is more to go wrong, but there's a lot more to go right as well. So interesting mix. But yeah, I think Chris would be a very entertaining one to see.
And actually, another interesting question, because the rules of line ball have now slightly shifted. You played on the 2.0 rules with the fact you have to hit a cushion before, or well, at some point in the play, you have to hit a cushion. We've now modified it slightly for the new season. The only change we've made is it either has to hit a cushion or it has to hit a ball, except obviously for the black.
Okay.
So, for example, if there's a red kind of just in the playing zone, if you roll a ball up and it makes contact with that red, you now don't have to hit the cushion. It gives just a little bit more flexibility, and it's had a really nice impact on the line ball five strikes tournament that we've already recorded. So I think we're starting to finally settle on a rule set that feels really comfortable. But obviously, it's the feedback we've had from players and from people watching that has led to these rule changes. So, Luke, if you had to change one rule in line ball to maybe better suit your style, or just because you think it would make it more entertaining, what line ball rule would you change?
I think, and don't get me wrong, I mean, it is a big feature of the game, but I'd generally be interested to see how it would work. Is if you hit the 8 ball, rather than it being a straight you're out, it's a yellow card. So
Okay.
you get a yellow card, red card rule if you hit the
Ah.
8 ball. So
Oh.
2 strikes and you're out, but 1 strike, you get away with it and you might end up knocking it. So you could use the yellow card tactically, which would be quite
Ah.
interesting.
I like that idea. It would probably give people a little bit more confidence to attack at the start of a point.
Still, if you put the ball, it's a foul, but at the same time, if you're playing an 8 ball and you're using it tactically to try and put a ball over a ball to make them pot the ball or whatever, it's an interesting little innuendo.
Oh, I really like that rule change. I wasn't sure if it was going to be something just like hypothetical and one we could maybe throw in, but that is something that is within the realms of actually testing out and trying. Because we actually, in the tournament we had in the middle of this year, 2025, Line Ball Level Up, we had a lot of really interesting rules. And you haven't seen that tournament, Luke, but
No.
in Line Ball Level Up, basically every team kind of got a power play. So something unique that changed how their team could play. So you could
Right.
hit the balls in a different order. You didn't have to hit them middle going outwards.
Oh, okay.
Stuff like that. And one of the rules, which was probably my favorite, was a rule called silence. And it's really similar to what you suggested. In this rule, before you play your shot, you could choose to silence a game losing mechanic for just that shot. So you could silence ball potting as a lose condition, or silence hitting the black ball. It would allow you to hit the black ball on one shot. It would allow you to pot a red or a yellow on one shot. And as long as you called it before you played it, you could do it for 1 point per game, which is a little bit like what you suggested. Obviously, you couldn't hit the black ball and pot it, because that would be two game losing conditions.
Yeah.
So going into the shot, you'd have to say, I'm silencing ball potting. If you hit the black, you'd still lose. But if you potted a ball, you'd be fine. So
Mm.
that was an interesting thing we just tried. But I kind of like, you framed it in a different way. You framed it as a yellow and a red card. And visually, that would be quite easy to represent on a graphic, because the one issue I think we had with Line Ball Level Up was visualizing the power plays. And you describing it almost more like a football analogy really has helped kind of maybe pull that over to an official rule, because I guess the reason why we are testing out these power plays is to see if any of them should be integrated into the core game, or whether they are just best kept as these fun little things on the side. And maybe, you know, in the new year we will have to test out this version of line ball with your yellow card rule. I'd like to try that. It'd be a fun title, I think.
Yeah, because I think with that, you're not losing the integrity of the game. I think if you allowed ball cutting, I think it is massively advantageous because,
Yeah.
you know, if somebody is struggling in a frame and they've got that one ball hanging over the pocket, that's their lifeline. So if you get rid of that, then it's a massive difference. But without losing any of the balls on the table and shifting where the back is, actually where you've got a build up in one game, which you get sometimes where you do get clusters over the pocket, moving the black ball may then shift opponents to go to the other side, which then all of a sudden it's like a new game and all of a sudden it could just twist the momentum of the game. But then that person may use their yellow card at that point and kind of take advantage of that. So it allows a bit more twist and turn within the frame itself.
Yeah, I like that because obviously graphically as well, I can make that so like, you know, if someone's used their yellow card, their name's now glowing yellow until the end of the round. And that'd be quite easy for the audience to follow along with because, yeah, the power play rules were so great, but they were complicated and it was by design to be a bit more of like a
You're
chaos.
constantly chasing the rules to find out what's happening. Yeah.
It was deliberately a chaos tournament. So whereas, you know, now if we're going to integrate any of them, it needs to be a bit more relaxed. So actually, this has turned into a bit more of like a line ball planning meeting now this ender. But I really like that rule. And actually,
So I just pull the whiteboard from back
yeah.
over here. Like,
Yeah, well, we are kind of in my fake office here. This is, yeah, as you can tell, not
it's a
a
lovely
real.
table you've got at the back there, Max.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to kind of do this now where I'm like, you know, using these sort of images that make me feel like I'm in an office. It feels good. As above everything, I would love to take line ball to the point where I do have my own private table where we
Oh, that'd
can
be beautiful.
that and mic up the players and do
As long as you're
tournaments.
hiring me, Max, as your next man, all right? That's fine.
Honestly, with the community we've now built on the channel, people like yourself, Sam Lazarus from the Dover League, Kieran from Rubbish Snooker, we have a great pool of people that we can have on the channel pretty regularly for these tournaments. And the moment line ball reaches that next level, we're bringing the whole family up with us, you know. So it's always going to be that way with line ball, no matter how this channel evolves. So obviously, as you've seen with 2025, it's been a year of growth. We're recording this video quite far in advance, so who knows if something's gone viral in the meantime that I've not noticed, then that's even better. But we've had some pretty steady growth throughout. YouTube Shorts have been a big driver behind the growth we've had. And a big thanks, of course, will go to Luke Terry for being some of the most popular content here on the channel. And
not the best content, but valuable content.
No, I would also argue some of the best because we were able to mic ourselves up while playing, and that added another level. And just your insight, of course. So it's the best and the most popular, which is really helping amongst obviously all the great tournaments we have with all the other players. So no, thank you so much for being with us, Luke. And here's to a great 2026 with our next Line Ball 5 Strikes tournament, and then hopefully beyond that, we'll get you back involved in some kind of team-based or personal tournament where we can hopefully have a redemption from you because fourth place in bottom half finish in the qualifiers. I hope that spurs you to come back even stronger next time.
Yeah, I will definitely be back. I do want to get involved. I still have the dream of playing with Tom Axtell. That is still my kind of dream. And if me and Tom were to win a tournament, I would pay for him to enter the ultimate, even though he would absolutely hate it. So that is my goal. That is my goal for probably 2026. Yeah. And then we'll work from there.
Super. No, that's a really good goal to achieve because the next tournament beyond Line Ball 5 Strikes is going to be team-based. So if Luke can make it, because I know it's a bit of a commitment for him to come all the way over to Canterbury, but if Luke can make that next tournament, we're going to be pairing him, obviously, with his childhood friend, Tom Axtell, who's been on the channel all the way through. Tom actually is in the Line Ball League, which is even more funny that Tom, who's not even a professional in any way, is in the league, and Luke yet couldn't qualify. So Tom's going to be there, and hopefully we can get Luke involved in the next one. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching this video, this nice rambly closeout to the year. We've got loads of highlight videos on the channel as well, kind of summarizing the great 2025 we've had, and also just doing throwback videos and showcasing older tournaments because we've got a lot of new people here who maybe didn't see where Line Ball started. So we're trying to make this time of the year really a celebration. And then when we get into 2026, it's just going to be tournaments and tournaments and tournaments. We've got So much coming up. As I said, Line Ball 5 Strikes, our next team tournament. And then what's coming after that will be the Line Ball League 2. So there's loads of stuff to watch. Make sure you subscribe because there's new videos every single week. And then we'll have insights, obviously, from Luke as we go throughout the channel. We've pre-recorded loads of stuff. So you'll be seeing him still everywhere, no matter what, which is really great. So thank you so much for being here today, Luke.
Absolute pleasure, Max. All the best, mate. And cheers.
Thank you. And yep, thank you all so much for watching. And we'll see you all in the next video on the Line Ball Pool channel.